In the sprawling tapestry of human history, there are names, certain families, that don't just leave their mark on the pages of books, they shape entire eras. They ascend to the pinnacle of fame, power, and unimaginable wealth. Yet, sometimes, this very ascent comes with an unforeseen cost, a price paid in successive tragedies, in untold losses, giving rise to an eerie curse that seems to linger. Today, we'll embark on a journey to explore one of America's most celebrated and simultaneously most tragic families. A dynasty whose very name has become iconic, the Kennedy family. And to truly unravel the mystery behind the curse that has pursued them, we must return to the very beginning, to the man who laid the foundation for it all. A man of steel and ambition, Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. Born in 1888 in an Irish immigrant neighborhood in Boston, Joseph Patrick Kennedy Sr. inherited not only sharp intellect but also an intense drive to climb. A yearning shaped by the hardships of the working class. He was the living embodiment of the American dream. A shrewd businessman, a daring investor, who built a colossal financial empire from real estate, banking, film production, and notably, the liquor industry during Prohibition, deals that sometimes stretched beyond the legal boundaries, but always yielded enormous profits. Money poured in like a flood. But for Joe Sr., money was merely a means. He desired more. He craved ultimate power. He yearned for widespread fame. And above all, he envisioned a political dynasty that he would found, a family that would reshape America. With his wife, Rose Fitzgerald, a refined, intelligent, and devout woman, he had 9 children, 9 seeds. He would cultivate and mold to bring his grand dream to fruition. They were children destined to become the future of a lineage that would dominate American politics. But it was from this burning ambition that the first seeds of tragedy quietly, painfully began to sprout. The first story, and perhaps the most heart-wrenching tragedy, carefully hidden behind the Kennedy family's perfect, glamorous facade, belonged to his eldest daughter, Rosemary Kennedy. Rosemary was born in 1918, the third child, but from her earliest years, she faced difficulties with cognitive development. Despite her captivating beauty, radiant smile, and pure soul, she lagged behind her talented, vivacious siblings. In a family where brilliance, perfection, and success were paramount, where every child was groomed to shine in significant societal roles, Rosemary's condition became a hidden worry, a potential blemish that could tarnish the family's pristine image. Joe Sr. wanted nothing to impede the political path he had charted for his sons, especially Joe Jr. and John F. Kennedy. He sought every means to make Rosemary normal, to enable her to integrate into the high society they aspired to. He tried every therapy, from special education methods to psychological treatments, but nothing changed. In 1941, when Rosemary was 23, and her behaviors became more difficult to control, unpredictable outbursts of anger, spontaneous actions, Joe Sr. made a cruel decision. A decision that would forever ruin his daughter's life. He arranged for her to undergo a lobotomy, a procedure that was still rudimentary, controversial, and extremely risky at the time. Doctors were instructed to continue the surgery until Rosemary stopped slurring her words or resisting. But the outcome was far worse than anyone could have imagined. The surgery was a devastating failure. Rosemary became permanently disabled, losing the ability to speak clearly, struggling to walk, and requiring lifelong care. Her mind was forever trapped in an unreachable void. Joe Sr. absolutely concealed this tragedy from the public and even from his remaining children. Rosemary was sent to a discreet mental institution in Wisconsin. Her life was hidden away from the limelight, like a dark secret never to be spoken of. An exorbitant price, a heartbreaking tragedy, all for a father's ambition and his relentless pursuit of perfection. This was the first, and most sorrowful, low note in the Kennedy family's symphony of sorrow. If Rosemary was the first cost of hidden ambition, then the eldest son, Joseph P. Kennedy Jr., was the cost of war, of heavy expectations, and of a cruel fate. Joe Jr. was the pride of the family. Tall, handsome, intelligent, and above all, he inherited his father's political ambition in full. He was destined to become the first Kennedy to be President of the United States. The one who would realize Joe Sr.'s great dream. He was the epitome of a future leader, always putting himself in the most challenging positions, never backing down from difficulty. He demonstrated leadership talent from a very early age, always at the forefront, always the center of attention. When World War II broke out, Joe Jr. didn't hesitate. He was the first among his siblings to join the Navy, eager to prove himself on the battlefield, not only for his country but also for the promise, for the burden of a political future awaiting him. In August 1944, Joe Jr. volunteered for a top-secret and extremely dangerous mission called Operation Anvil. He piloted a specially modified B-24 Liberator bomber, packed with 12 tons of explosives, tasked with flying it unmanned and detonating it automatically at a heavily fortified Nazi missile base in France. This was a suicide mission, requiring the pilot to fly the plane to a certain point, activate autopilot, then parachute to safety. But what no one expected happened. The plane unexpectedly exploded in midair while flying over Suffolk, England. Before reaching its target, no one survived. Joe Sr.'s greatest hope, the heir to the Kennedy political throne, vanished into ashes over the English sky. Joe Jr.'s death was a huge shock, not only to the family but also to the political future Joe Sr. had meticulously planned. The curse seemed to have begun claiming its first victims, young, promising individuals. Yet, it didn't stop there. Tragedy continued to strike Joe Sr.'s second daughter, a beautiful, free-spirited, and vivacious young woman who always yearned for freedom, Kathleen "Kick" Kennedy. Kick was the family's princess, beloved for her charm, sharp wit, and independent spirit, unwilling to be bound by family rules. She was the only one among her siblings who dared to defy her parents' objections to pursue love. She married William Cavendish, the Marquess of Hartington, a British aristocrat who was Protestant. Despite fierce opposition from her parents because he was not Catholic, their marriage lasted less than 4 months before her husband was killed in action in World War II. Kik was utterly heartbroken but continued to live for another true love, Peter Fitzwilliam, a married man who was also not Catholic. This relationship once again faced strong opposition from the Kennedy family, who could not accept a life that went against their traditions and morals. In May 1948, en route to southern France to meet her father and discuss her second marriage, the small plane carrying Kik and her beloved encountered an unforeseen violent storm. It crashed into a hill near Saint-Beauzile, France. No one survived. Kathleen Kennedy passed away at the age of 28, a free spirit stifled by family rules and ultimately snatched away by fate. Joe Sr. was the only family member to attend his daughter's funeral, a sign of the isolation and harshness of destiny. A short, turbulent life, ending tragically, further solidified the belief that a curse was haunting this family. It seemed that anyone who stood out, anyone who carried hope, had to face an inescapable tragedy. In less than a decade, Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. witnessed 3 of his children perish in heartbreaking tragedies, one living a life of perpetual seclusion. These deaths were not merely isolated accidents, they were the first bells, signaling a larger, more devastating chain of tragedies that would befall the Kennedy family. Perhaps Joe Sr.'s boundless ambition and burning desire for power inadvertently sowed the seeds of a mysterious curse, a cruel destiny, a burden that would haunt the Kennedy bloodline for generations. He lived long enough to witness even more horrific losses, deaths that redefined the concept of a curse in the American mind, and made it an inseparable part of the Kennedy family's history. In the next video of the Kennedy Curse series, we will explore Joe Sr.'s most famous son, who reached the pinnacle of power, becoming the youngest U.S. president, but then paid a terrible price, John F. Kennedy. Join us to learn more about the continuing secrets and tragedies of the Kennedy family.